Welcome to Morrison's Earth Eats. Running the only human restaurant in the Nexus Station food court comes with its fair share of challenges. Some of them are predictable, like sourcing ingredients from a planet that's still considered a death world by most intergalactic civilizations. Others are downright absurd. For example, watching a 7-foot-tall Vexor warrior, a species renowned for their combat prowess and their ability to withstand direct plasma fire, sit hunched over a table, crying, was not something I had anticipated when I opened Morrison's Earth Eats. The warrior's mandibles quivered, his carapace flexing as he carefully reached for his 4th glass of milk. His compound eyes glistened with genuine tears, not the metaphorical, "Oh wow, this is spicy" kind of tears, but the "dear ancestors, I have seen the abyss and it burns" kind. "By the sacred moons, what manner of chemical warfare is this?" he rasped, his voice barely more than a pained whisper. I suppressed a grin. This was just a mild chicken curry. Mild. Any human child could eat this without blinking. "That's just turmeric," I said, wiping down the counter with a practiced motion. "And a tiny dash of cry powder." The Vexor warrior's exoskeleton shuddered. He grabbed his milk with all 4 of his clawed hands and downed it in one desperate gulp. "I can still feel it," he muttered. A few other customers, a mix of species from across the galaxy, watched in horrified fascination. Some of them had come here just to see the spectacle of aliens attempting human food, like some kind of twisted amusement park ride. I had to admit, it was good for business. The warrior hesitated, then glanced toward the floating holo menu above the counter. His mandibles clicked in contemplation. Are there stronger variants?" "Oh yeah," I said, barely containing my laughter. "That's basically baby food where I come from." The Vexor's compound eyes widened in horror. "You want to try the Vindaloo?" He fled so fast his chair tipped over, adding another casualty to my ever-growing collection of broken furniture. I sighed, making a mental note to invest in sturdier chairs before another species declared war on my seating arrangements. The most controversial restaurant in the galaxy. Welcome to Morrison's Earth Eats, the most feared, revered, and aggressively monitored establishment in the entire Nexus Station food court. The food court itself was massive, spanning an entire deck of the station and offering cuisine from across the galaxy. Some of the most popular options included Zenton protein cubes, highly nutritious, completely flavorless. Metamorphic crystalline nutrient formations, food that technically isn't solid or liquid. Jovian gas suspension bars, for species that preferred to inhale their nutrients. And then there was my place. Morrison's Earth Eats. A place of legend. A place of terror. A place that had a growing list of banned substances that were, in reality, just normal human spices. You see, the problem wasn't that human food was inedible to most alien species. The problem was that it was too much flavor, too much intensity, too much pain. Some species eat to survive. Humans turned it into an extreme sport. I learned this the hard way when my first alien customer nearly went into anaphylactic shock from black pepper. Not because he was allergic, but because his species had never encountered a chemical so aggressive before. Since then, 3 different galactic regulatory bodies had tried to classify my restaurant as a biochemical hazard zone. I had outlasted them all. The ambassador who loved mac and cheese. Jack, my favorite dispenser of controlled substances. I turned to see Ambassador Blore literally sliding toward his usual seat. Blore was a gelatinous life form, a sentient blob of translucent blue-green goo with no fixed facial features, but an undeniable love for human food. Unlike most of my other customers, Blore thrived on spicy food. He didn't have traditional taste buds, just chemical receptors that interpreted capsaicin as a delightful experience rather than a death threat. I was already grabbing the ingredients before he fully settled into his custom-made seat. I had learned from experience that gelatinous species and regular chairs did not mix well. "Let me guess," I said, "buffalo mac and cheese with extra cayenne." His entire form rippled with excitement. "Indeed, my good human," he burbled. "Truly, no other species understands the joy of edible suffering quite like yours." I shook my head, stirring the cheese sauce. "How's the diplomatic crisis going?" I asked. Blor's form darkened slightly, the equivalent of a frown. "Less than optimal," he admitted. "The silicon consciousness is still insisting that organic life is inherently inefficient and should be upgraded into digital form." I winced. Yikes. That's a tough crowd. I tried suggesting a cultural exchange. Blor continued, "But..." He hesitated. I narrowed my eyes. "But..." Before he could answer, a commotion at the entrance to the food court caught my attention. The Galactic Food Safety Administration arrives. 3 figures in pristine white environmental suits marched through the crowd, their scanning devices beeping ominously. They held them out like shields, as if expecting a sudden spice-based assault. I sighed. The Galactic Food Safety Administration. Right on schedule. The lead inspector was Zishitik, a towering mantis-like alien with an impressive track record of trying and failing to shut me down. I watched her scanners go haywire the moment she stepped into my kitchen. Her antennae twitched violently, her large eyes narrowing behind her face shield. "Chef Morrison," she declared, voice sharp. "Our sensors detected traces of capsaicin from 3 decks away. Care to explain?" I gestured to the bubbling pot of buffalo mac and cheese, as innocent as could be. "I'm making lunch." Her scanners wailed louder. Blor jiggled, looking way too amused. I glanced at him suspiciously. "Blor, what did you do?" The ambassador somehow managed to look both apologetic and delighted. "Well," he hesitated. "You remember that bottle of hot sauce you gave me?" I froze. "Blor, please tell me you did not take the ghost pepper sauce to a Senate meeting." Blor jiggled harder. "In my defense," he said cheerfully, "they insisted on experiencing authentic human diplomacy." I groaned. The inspectors advanced, their scanners shrieking. Just another normal day at the most dangerous restaurant in the galaxy. The food police arrive. Again. Just as I was putting the finishing touches on Blor's buffalo mac and cheese, the doors to the food court slammed open with a level of dramatic urgency usually reserved for military raids or alien invasions. I didn't even need to turn around. I knew who it was. 3 figures, dressed in pristine white environmental suits, moved in perfect formation, their scanners raised like weapons. Their bulky, reinforced boots made a rhythmic clunking as they marched across the floor. The Galactic Food Safety Administration, GFSA. Right on schedule. "Jack," Blor gurgled, his translucent form quivering slightly. Perhaps I should have mentioned something before now. I glanced up from the bubbling cheese sauce and met his somewhat guilty-looking form. "Blor," I said, very slowly. "What did you do?" He hesitated, his gooey form shifting in a way that looked suspiciously like someone trying not to make eye contact. "Well," he said, stretching out the word. "You recall that bottle of hot sauce you gave me last time?" I froze. "Blor," I said again, my voice now dangerously calm. "You're not about to tell me that you brought ghost pepper sauce to a galactic Senate meeting?" There was a very long silence. Blor jiggled awkwardly. "In my defense," he said, "they insisted on experiencing authentic human diplomacy." I groaned. The GSSA inspectors were getting closer, their scanners already beeping ominously as they locked onto my spice rack, like it was a nuclear arsenal. Weaponized spices and galactic legal nightmares. The lead inspector was Zishitik, an 8-foot-tall mantis in a hazmat suit. I had met her before. Many times. She had made it her personal mission to shut me down. She stepped into my kitchen, and her scanner immediately started wailing like a starship collision alarm. "Chef Morrison," she snapped, her antennae twitching in pure outrage. "Our sensors detected traces of capsaicin from 3 decks away." Care to explain? I gestured to the innocent-looking pot of mac and cheese bubbling on the stove. I'm making lunch, I said, as if that was a reasonable defense. Blor's gelatinous form wobbled with barely restrained excitement. Oh, this is delightful, he said. I love when they visit. Tick's compound eyes narrowed. You. She turned her attention fully to Blor, her antennae quivering with barely concealed exasperation. We receive reports that you. She checked her datavat, nearly incapacitated 6 diplomats with a liquid explosive. Blor brightened. Literally, his gel-like body took on a lighter hue. Ah, you mean the hot sauce, he burbled happily. Yes, that was quite the experience. The senator from Dravok 9 actually left his containment suit to dump his entire head into the water purification tank. Truly, I believe it was a moment of cultural exchange. Tick slowly turned back to me, her mandibles clicking sharply. Chef Morrison, she said, her voice dangerously calm. What exactly was in that sauce? I sighed, rubbing my temples. Carolina Reapers, ghost peppers, a bit of vinegar, some garlic. Stop. Tick held up a warning claw. You named those peppers as if they were military-grade bioweapons, she said, her mandibles twitching. Are you hearing yourself? Ghost peppers, Reaper peppers. I shrugged. Sounds ominous, sure, but they're perfectly natural. Humans eat them all the time. Tick stared at me like I had just confessed to eating live plasma grenades for breakfast. The legal gray area of human cuisine. This is the 4th time in 2 months that I've had to investigate your establishment, Tick said, her voice heavy with barely controlled rage. I held up a finger. Technically, the 5th time. I corrected. You forgot the time the Krull ambassador had a meltdown over cinnamon. Her mandibles clenched. You poisoned an ambassador. It wasn't poison. The dude just didn't expect something sweet to also be spicy. Tick rubbed her face in frustration, which looked a little strange considering she had an exoskeleton. Behind her, one of her colleagues, an Amphitrite in a bulky exosuit, was aiming his scanner at my spice rack like it was a bomb factory. Capsaicin content, lethal to 3 species, potentially weaponizable, he muttered. Okay, look, I said, leaning on the counter. This is getting ridiculous. I have all the proper certifications. My food is labeled clearly. There's a waiver posted on every table. And yet, you people keep showing up like I'm running a clandestine arms trade. Tick's antennae twitched again. You are currently in possession of substances banned under Galactic Regulation 472b, which prohibits the trade and distribution of any known biochemical hazard within shared space environments. I threw up my hands. You mean my hot sauce? That's not a biochemical hazard, it's a condiment. Blor raised a gooey pseudopod. Actually, I believe it technically counts as a level 3 incendiary under the Tuquan Accords. I glared at him. Blor, I hissed, not helping. Tick sighed, glancing at her datapad. Per protocol, I am required to issue a formal warning, she said. However, she looked at me, hesitated, then sighed again. I have reviewed the footage from the Senate incident, she admitted, and while I personally find your food horrifying, I must acknowledge that. She clenched her mandibles. Technically, no laws were broken. Blor wiggled happily. Marvelous. Does this mean I can take some more sauce for my next meeting? No. Both Tick and I shouted at the same time. Blor deflated slightly. A shame. Tick typed something into her datapad, her mandibles twitching in clear irritation. Chef Morrison, she said, grudgingly, you may continue operations. For now. I grinned. See you next week, Inspector. She made an exasperated clicking noise and stomped away, her team following in resigned defeat. As soon as they left, Blor perked up. So, he said, about that extra KN. I sighed. Just another normal day at Morrison's Earth Eats. Bureaucracy, bioweapons, and buffalo wings. I folded my arms across my chest as the Galactic Food Safety Administration, GFSA, Inspectors continued their intense scanning ritual, treating my spice rack like a crime scene. "Look," I said, rubbing my temple. "I get that you have regulations. I respect them. But I really need you to stop treating my kitchen like it's a biological weapons facility." Inspector Zishitik, an 8-foot-tall mantis in a reinforced hazmat suit, clicked her mandibles together irritably. "Chef Morrison," she said, voice tight with barely controlled frustration. "Every time we investigate this place, we find a new violation. Last time, it was the so-called death sausage incident. Before that, the cinnamon debacle. And now," she glanced at her datapad, "you are directly responsible for incapacitating an entire diplomatic delegation." "To be fair," Blore interjected, quivering with amusement, "I did warn them it was spicy. But you know how politicians are, always convinced they can handle more than they actually can." Tick rounded on him so fast her antennae twitched aggressively. "You fed them a substance that registered hazardous on 4 planetary biothreat indexes." Blore jiggled cheerfully. "And yet, no one died," he said, as if this was a perfectly reasonable defense. Tick's mandibles clicked in frustration as she turned back to me. I sighed. "Look, I label everything. I make my customers sign waivers. I've filed every regulation the station requires. The issue here isn't my food." I gestured toward the bubbling mac and cheese. "It's that you guys still don't understand human biology." Tick tensed. "Excuse me." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the counter. "Let me explain something," I said. "Humans, we evolved on a planet where nearly everything was trying to kill us. Our ancestors had to figure out how to survive in an environment full of toxic plants, venomous creatures, and extreme conditions. That means our taste buds and digestive systems are built for endurance. Things that would kill other species are just a Saturday barbecue for us." The GS-80 team looked at each other uneasily. The Amphoraite inspector frowned at his scanner. "But this level of spice is technically classifiable as a mild neurotoxin in 73 species." I spread my hands. "And yet, humans eat it for fun, because it makes our brains release endorphins. We like the pain." Tick stared at me in horrified silence. Blore jiggled with pure joy. "Oh, this is my favorite part," he gurgled. "The chicken wing incident of Galactic Cycle 8421. Tick took a deep, steadying breath, or whatever the mantis equivalent was. "Fine," she said through clenched mandibles. "Let's assume, for one terrifying moment, that I accept this biological absurdity about your species. That still doesn't excuse the fact that your establishment continues to disrupt station operations on a weekly basis." I shrugged. "Not my fault people keep underestimating human cuisine." She narrowed her compound eyes. "Not your fault," she repeated. "What about the chicken wing incident last month?" "Ah, that one." I cleared my throat. "Okay, first of all," I said, holding up a finger, "the customer ordered the wings voluntarily. Second, I explicitly warned him that the Doombringer Wings Challenge was only for experienced spice eaters. And third," I paused for emphasis, "he signed a waiver." Tick looked unconvinced. "He also signed a medical release form," she said. "Yes," I admitted, because the last 3 contestants required emergency rehydration. But that's normal in Earth's competitive eating scene. Tick let out a long, suffering sigh. I decided to double down. "Besides, he lived," I said. "He just, needed some time in a medical stasis pod. And he set a new record. That's an achievement." Tick rubbed her face in frustration. "You are impossible," she muttered. Blore, meanwhile, was absolutely loving this. "I still have that video saved," he said happily. The part where he tried to scream but couldn't because of the spice fumes was particularly hilarious. Tick shot him a murderous glare. "The legal loophole that keeps me in business." Tick turned back to me, her scowl now firmly in place. "Chef Morrison," she said, "the only reason your restaurant is still operational is because of a stupid bureaucratic loophole that classifies human food as cultural enrichment rather than standard cuisine. I grinned. Yup, I said. And since the Intergalactic Trade Commission officially recognizes cultural culinary practices as protected under non-interference laws, there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Tick looked like she wanted to strangle me. Blore let out a bubbling giggle. It truly is a marvel of legal gymnastics, he said. I admire it greatly. Tick glared daggers at both of us. This isn't over, she growled, jabbing a clawed finger at me. One of these days, you're going to slip up, and when you do, she leaned in ominously. I'll be there. With that, she turned sharply on her heel and marched out of the restaurant, her team trailing behind her. The moment she was out of sight, I let out a breath of relief. Blore was vibrating with excitement. Oh, that was fantastic, he said. Can we do it again next week? I groaned. Blore, for the love of all things edible, please stop traumatizing government officials with my food. No promises, he burbled cheerfully. I turned back to the stove, stirring the bubbling mac and cheese. Just another normal day in the most controversial restaurant in the galaxy.